As a Nigerian, a thing as common as the sun is not. It's never going to be a big deal for you, save for the fact that sometimes it gets to be so hot that you just want it to be a little bit cold. But here I am sitting with the sun, looking for the sun as though it has gone away, as though it ever left. But it did. It left. It has not been around for quite some time. It's winter, and a lot of persons find themselves in different parks and in different places, just trying to get a little of this God-given gift before it completely turns out to be something else. And just thinking about certain things also draws me to Achebe's The Trouble with Nigeria. It never made sense to a great extent when he talked about how Nigeria talk about the problems of the country the same way Europe talks about the weather. But here am I sitting down, and you get to see that the weather is a big deal. You have to check the temperature before you leave your house, what is going to happen in like 6 hours before you plan your day and your meetings, if you're having a date, if you are meeting somebody, if you are going to church, if you are going to the mosque, if you are going to the monastery, if you are going to the market, if you are going out. You just ordinarily stay conscious, and you stay active, and you stay in the know, because you want to really ordinarily get to understand how life would be affected in response to a thing like the weather. And so in The Trouble with Nigeria, you get to see how he also drew the line as to the fact that you can do little or nothing about the weather, but that also has been altered to a great extent, because in the West much have been done about the weather. People have come up with new ways of coming to live with the weather. People have come up with new ways of coming to experience life in a different way. People have come up with different ways of coming to exist with a thing like winter, and to many persons also with a thing like summer, because sometimes it gets so hot in summer, sometimes it gets so cold in winter. And here we are 40 plus years after he wrote that book, and we have still almost not done what he talked about, our problems. Why he maintained that little or nothing can be done about the weather, he said if we resign ourselves to just talking about our national problems as things of small talks, then we do ourselves much damage. Because when we resign ourselves to living with small talks, when we resign ourselves to living with our current problems as though our problems are just there and there's nothing that can be done about it, we resign ourselves to the shame of our own doom. We sacrifice our own peace, and we sacrifice the future of our children, and it becomes a thing of a constant sorrow. It becomes a thing of constant suffering. When you have a problem and you do nothing about your problem, the chances that you come out of that problem unscarred is almost non-existent. But when you have a problem and you do something about that problem, there are two possible outcomes. You might fail, or you might succeed. And one might even argue that there are multifaceted layers as it concerns what can come out. You might change the problem, you might use the problem to your advantage, than just sitting down there and giving up. And that is what leaves me angry also, the fact that we have resigned ourselves and we've told ourselves, almost nothing can be done, almost nothing can be resolved from our many problems, almost nothing can be done to the effect that we get to see good things get to happen in a place like Nigeria. That is why you see people angry at almost any slight chance they get to find their way. If they get to find the police on their way, they become so angry. If they find the government trying to do more than the government have already done, they come shouting at them. People are just not unnecessarily, people are angry for the right reasons. But just like Steve Biko will say, the black man is not ignorant of his problems. The black man just lacks the consciousness of the fact that his or her problems can ordinarily be channeled. Just lacks the consciousness of how to go about recognizing the fact that his or her problems are things he or she shouldn't be living with. We at the moment find ourselves in Africa. We at the moment, Nigerians, we at the moment always are caught up within these conversations of home and exile, especially for those who are away. And even those who are within the country, they find themselves within this particular framework, this particular landscape of talking about a thing like their home and the exile they get to choose to live in. They live in two worlds, if not more. They live in the utopian world upon which their religion sometimes have given to them, to give them hope in the face of despair, in the face of existential crisis, and the real world that happens to be where we are. For those in diaspora, it's clearly what Achebe was talking about, home and exile. It's the complete separation of two realities, but you are forced and dragged into the fact that you have to live in these two realities or even more realities, and we can continue talking and talking till tomorrow, but we need to call to mind the fact that just like the sun, sometimes we also will not really come to understand the things we ordinarily have within our possession, that we ordinarily have within the premises we find ourselves until we lose them. Just like the British songwriter and musical artist Passenger will get to tell us, you can only buy what you are sold, and sometimes you only get to know your lover when you let her go. And the most painful part of that stuff is the fact that you ordinarily also let her go. And the story continues. Our politicians have not done almost anything Achebe didn't point out in his work, and we also get to see that in our day-to-day existence, that those in power sometimes, if not most times, and if not all the time, just seem to have forgotten or have not even come to know what it means to really lead, what it means to really be in power, what it means to really come to terms with the fact that they have people to lead and they have a duty to ordinarily carry out. Because when you look at life across the country, when you look at a place like Bafin is in Buki in Cross River State, Nigeria. Bafin doesn't have a hospital. It's a community. It's a full-blown community. It doesn't have a hospital. It doesn't have a school. It doesn't have a market. It doesn't have a park. Let's leave the idea of a park. At least it has place. I doubt if it has a place where people come out to just sit down and talk. But the basic stuff that ordinarily make for life is a thing that Bafin have failed to come to have over the years. And it's not her fault. It's the fault of those who kept at the helms of our affairs to ordinarily get to see that things ordinarily should be working well for a place like Bafin. And Bafin is not alone. If you push a bit down to a place like Agba, or you go down the other side to a place like Butantong, across the other side, that is the eastern part of Buki, you get to see another chunk of reality. Butantong is where the national park is, in the Nigerian National Park. And yet, life still seems to be in the Hobbition state of nature, and you begin to ask yourself, from where to where are we going to go, and for how long are we going to continue just rambling about our problems, or for how long should we just stay and give up on ourselves and give up on the possibility of a change? And the answer is, we're already late, and we can continue shouting and screaming rather than doing what we ordinarily are supposed to do. And as we fail to do that, we continue to see ourselves, and we continue to see ourselves go down the drain, and we continue to see our children go down the drain, and we continue to see how things ordinarily get to go, and how things ordinarily get to play bad, and how things ordinarily shouldn't be. And when you look at the writing of Gibran, the Lebanese poet and writer, you get to understand our problems on different folds. He reminds us, and he calls us to pity a whole lot of things that happen in a particular nation, and these are some of the pities he talks about. Pity the nation that is full of beliefs and empty of religion. Pity the nation that wears a cloth it does not weave, and eats a bread it does not harvest. Pity the nation that acclaims the bully as hero, and that deems the glittering conqueror bountiful. Pity a nation that despises a passion in its dream, yet submits in its awakening. Pity the nation that raises not its voice, save when it walks in a funeral, boasts not except among its ruins, and will rebel not save when its neck is laid between the sword and the block. Pity the nation whose statesman is a fox, whose philosopher is a juggler, and whose art is the art of patching and mimicking. Pity the nation that welcomes its new ruler with trumpeting, and welfares him with hooting, only to welcome another with trumpeting again. Pity the nation whose sages are dumb with years, and whose strong men are yet in the cradle. Pity the nation divided into fragments, each fragment deeming itself a nation. Pity Nigeria. I pity Nigeria on many fronts, not because I hate Nigeria. I love Nigeria. I want to see Nigeria grow. I want to see Nigeria work. I want to see her succeed, because indeed she can actually succeed. I want to see things get to work well. I want to see her prosper. I want to see her grow, because I believe she indeed can grow, and she indeed can prosper, and she indeed can be all the things she ordinarily can be within the framework and the limitations of her existence down here. Because she has the people, she has the capacity, she has what it takes to ordinarily be great in the 21st century. She has what it takes to indeed be called the giant of Africa in the real sense of the word, not rhetorics, not what we've come to see. Because I believe she can indeed be all she wants to be in truth. She can be all her youth want to see her become. She can bring the yearnings of her children to fruition. She can bring the desires of those within her confines, within her embrace, her maternal embrace. She can bring all their desires to reality. If and only if she gets rulers, not rulers even, she gets leaders that ordinarily can see to the fact that things get done how they ordinarily should be done. So that when you see a young Nigerian speaking almost ill all the time about the country, you ask yourself, where is the lie? Because to such a Nigerian, what ordinarily would pass for life for him has been cut short by the government, has been cut short by leaders in power who have almost ordinarily no idea of what it takes to really rule a country or lead a country. Leaders who don't even know the last time they read a book, or the last time they sat down to meditate, or the last time they sat down to really read a paper and indeed come to have real vision for the people. You look from the east to the north, from the west to the south, and you ask me, the same way I ask you, where are leaders that would ordinarily turn ideas, that's if they have ideas, to reality? Where are leaders that would dream into the future, that would dream into 50 years from now, 40 years from now, thinking of sustainable development goals that ordinarily would be sustained and should be sustained and keep the country moving? Not the pen to paper we get to do every time, not the meetings we get to call almost every time, not the stuffs we get to do. I mean, real leaders, visionary men and women that would indeed speak up and speak for the country to move on and to move forward. These are the things that make most persons become angry. These are the things that make many persons become disillusioned by the fact that a place like Nigeria is fitting for them to exist, for them to flourish, for them to do all the good things they ordinarily want to do. Because if you ask them, they will tell you, we see our brothers and sisters and our friends and our neighbors over the other side, across the Atlantic, and we see the lives they are living. They live in the 21st century. You don't want them to see these things. They see these things because they go online. They have access to the internet. They read. They know what a good country should be. Gone are those days where they just rely on newspaper and rely on the dreams ordinarily within their immediate environment. Nowadays, people dream and people think big. People make friends on different shores from different continents. People see what life ordinarily is down there and dream for this type of thing also to become their reality. Just like most of us now dream and hope to be out in the sun. Most of us dream and hope to ordinarily get to sit down in a park like this and try to imagine and envisage the possibility of a sun bathing our skin, and we coming to terms with reality, coming to terms with the fact that we indeed need a thing like the sun. And also, for how long do we want to pretend as if we don't know the fact that we are very, very backwards when it comes to the reality of our life down here, and the fact that we are not making progress. The fact that we just go about renovating houses of big men and renovating houses of politicians and renovating houses that ordinarily shouldn't be, as opposed to the things we ordinarily should be doing, as opposed to the fact that the National Library up until next year would never come to be commissioned, would never come to be completed, because men and women with their evil hearts and their ill intents have just carted away with that money. For how long are we going to tell ourselves that we as a people have not really come to prioritize the things we ordinarily should be prioritizing? We've just been giving ourselves false hope, and we've just been investing in things we ordinarily don't need to do. And this is not the government alone. This is not the government I'm talking about. This is the choices we get to make within the day-to-day existence we get to find ourselves. Because if you listen to Gibran, you get to understand what the problem we currently face is and how ordinarily that can escalate to different places. He says, pity the nation that wears a cloth it does not weave. It calls to mind what Gandhi did in India. And that is why till today you get to see the wheel on their national flag, and it has become a national symbol, because he said, let's drop the English clothes. This is a way that kills the economy. Let's go back to the things we ordinarily can do by ourselves. Let's pick up the weave. He called people in different ashrams, and then he was like, let us start again from the very beginning. Let us get to build ourselves. Let us get to do for ourselves what we can do for ourselves, and let us import the things we ordinarily cannot produce. People import tables in Nigeria. People import chairs in Nigeria. They import bed frames. They import things that ordinarily can be done back home. People get to import glasses. They get to import different stuff, and it's just sad. It's just annoying. There's no problem in importing this stuff. But do you know the harm you get to do when you rely so much so on foreign stuff as opposed to the things you ordinarily get to do? For a very long time, a thing like the hides and leathers gotten from the north were attributed to be a thing from Italy, and they were called Italian leather. Why was it called Italian leather? So that people can ordinarily have faith in such a product and buy them. Why were they called Italian leathers? They were called Italian leathers because people never really believed in the fact that such quality can ordinarily come from Nigeria. Up until many years where people started debunking stuff like that, and up until now, many persons still don't even feel the need and the joy to patronize homemade stuff. So that for a very long time, things produced in Aba were that made in China, made in Japan, made in Germany, so that people can comfortably buy. Meanwhile, for a very long time, people were producing those stuffs back there in Aba. We're producing things in Owerri. We're producing things in Onitsha. But nobody ordinarily had the courage to really stand where the stuffs are being produced from, because many persons will not come to trust and buy them. Same thing with bags, same thing with shoes, same thing with books, same thing with novels, same things with literary materials we get to see. We find it so difficult to really embrace ourselves and tell ourselves that, you know what, this thing we are doing is a thing that we ordinarily should be proud of. It's a thing that we ordinarily should raise our shoulders high. He continues, pity the nation that eats the bread it does not harvest. Pity the nation that eats food it gets to import all the time. We import meat, we import fish, we import rice. Fisayo is currently talking about the illegal importations of stuff into the country. I don't even want to call that importation, because it's like smuggling. That's the best word to use. The illegal smuggling of rice and of cars and of different stuff into the country. And you ask yourself, we have the land. We don't just have the idea to get to turn the land into what we ordinarily should turn the land into. Same thing happened with Zimbabwe. Get the land from the land grabbers. Get the land from the white people. Good and fine, no problem. It's all fine and good. You've gotten the land. What about the science that will see to the fact that the land ordinarily gets to do what it ordinarily is supposed to do? You don't have it because you've not invested the time and the talent in such a thing, because you've not given yourself the much needed diligence to ordinarily get to function. And so with the little we have and the little sun we have before us, and the fact that we can just open the soil and put something and then it germinates, unlike what the West have to go through, the different laboratory researches and techniques they get to have to do before they get to plant stuff, we don't really face that. And there's a school of thought that believes that Because of the fact that we don't really struggle with a lot of things, we ordinarily have given ourselves to resignation. This idea that necessity is the mother of invention, and since we ordinarily have not been so much in want, we ordinarily have given ourselves just to the fact that we just want to eat, and we just want to drink, and we just want to die, and we just want to have sex, and we just want to give ourselves to our lustful passions and the likes of that. That is not the case. That is not the case. The case is that there are lots of Nigerians out there. There are lots of people out there dreaming to do something important for their life. There are lots of Nigerians hoping and praying that ordinary life gets to be better. And they, like their friends and their colleagues in different countries, ordinarily come to do stuff that ordinarily would benefit them and benefit their family. And so you hear me write things the likes of, beneath the stars my restless spirit soars to realms uncharted where my dreams abide. Each step a conquest on unyielding shores, through tempests vast where fears and doubts reside. The weight of purpose binds me to this path, a torch, a light against the dark of faith. Through storms of scorn and fortune's fleeting wrath, I press ahead, though shadows saturate. No peak too distant, no abyss too wild. The fire within burns brighter than the sun. With every fall I rise, my will, my guide, until the dawn declares the battle won. For in my heart, ambition's endless song declares the weak must rise and claim the strong. This is not just my desire. It's the desire and the song sung and desired by lots of Nigerian children. Lots of Nigerian adults hope to see a world where their desires and their dreams ordinarily would come to meet reality, where their yearnings would ordinarily be given the chance and the much needed attention it can be given. The environment made conducive for them to ordinarily function well. So that a thing like migration will not be forced. So that those who want to migrate will migrate peacefully. So that those who want to stay in the village and just be farmers can be farmers, because that is ordinarily what many persons want to do. Be farmers who are enlightened to meet up with the 21st century and hold on to the traditions of our ancestors and the ways of farming down there. So that those who want to read can read and become what they want to become. So that those who want to go to school and become doctors can go to school and indeed become doctors and not apply to work in banks. So that engineers will not be found in banks, and so that nurses will be nurses and doctors will be doctors and lawyers will be lawyers. So that children will just be children and adults be adults and the elderly be the elderly, and the society function the way ordinarily is supposed to function. Youths just be youths. And everybody just do what ordinarily they're supposed to do, so that dreams can be dreams and they can be fulfilled, so that more than enough can be gotten and be desired than this current existential bullshit many persons get to live in. Because like it or not, many persons die in Nigeria for things ordinarily not worth it. They die in roads that they ordinarily shouldn't die in. And you get to hear people say lots of rubbish, especially this Christmas period where people will ordinarily have to travel home. You get to hear people spill out a whole lot of crazy stuff as to why people get to die on our federal roads and our local roads. And I ask you, and the things ordinarily we also have not really looked at, is the fact that the roads are not even conducive for traveling. Talk more of the fact that many persons would just come to die in these roads because they ordinarily don't have the vehicle that ordinarily should be plying the road, and they just put in anything that is in the road just down there, and they just see, okay, it's all fine, let's just go. Roads are not properly maintained. The vehicles are not properly maintained. People just live life managing the few things they have, as opposed to the endless possibilities that their life can ordinarily be. We can talk from today till tomorrow. We can have these conversations from now till next year. We can scream the loudest, but we mustn't give up. We must learn to hold our leaders accountable. We also have to change the way we get to do things. We cannot just sit down and just want things to change, and we just want life to be the best of what life ordinarily can be without giving ourselves the much needed possibility we ordinarily need to see to it that a thing like life down here become plausible. We must be ready and willing to be open to a whole lot of things. We must be very critical of existence, and we must grow beyond our stomach, and we must grow beyond our infrastructure. We must blend our morality and our religious side with the scientific side that our ancestors ordinarily, in one way or the other, came to champion many years ago. We must read books and policies that see to it that books are published, and books are published well and distributed also to almost all parts of the country, and a chance at ordinarily getting to make sense of life can still be done despite the fact that people get to buy books. Because most of the times people look at the prices of books and they're like, I we buy this one like this, but that is only because policies have not been kept in place. You look at how much books are sold abroad, and you look at how much subscription for journals are done down here, and you compare it with what happens back home, and you just see the stark difference, and you see the seeming injustice. Because with purchase of book at $16, when you live within such economy, you find it easy to buy a book within that range, as opposed to when you have to do conversion. And it also calls to question how we want to go about collaborating with different people as it concerns what life ordinarily can be, and how collaboration with people can ordinarily get to function. From today till tomorrow till next year, the war continues to go as it goes, and the war continues to function the way it functions. All we can think and hope for is a chance to grow and a desire to function well. Dreams of many Nigerians are fleeting. What they really want for their life and what they are getting are in contrast. And the way forward is in our lived experience, is in the fact that we need to give ourselves the chance to be Nigerians and to explore and do things within our reach. And sometimes you just look and you ask yourself if there's really hope, if there's really hope for the common man, if the distress we really find ourselves in at the moment will not kill us. Because sometimes it looks as though the distress we find ourselves will just destroy us. But no, read history, read through the different pages of history, and you get to find the different problems down there, and you see how they have come to manage themselves, and you get to understand the fact that things ordinarily can be done better if we ordinarily want to allow things to ordinarily be better. Our world can be better, Nigeria can grow big, can flourish, because it owes Africa a lot. With over 240 million people, because we don't even know how many we are in that country. Not even an approximation. We just tell ourselves these things that we are 220 million, and we want to accept that. With such amount of people, we owe Africa and the world a whole lot when it comes to labor force, when it comes to doctors, engineers, when it comes to innovation, and we're not really doing enough. We want to compare ourselves with India, we want to compare ourselves with the UK and with different people, but we don't want to do what they do. How do you even compare yourself with India? Is it from the democracy, or from the intellectuals they have produced, or from the way their life ordinarily gets to go? We have similar challenges, but they're trying to see to it that they get to better their life. What are we doing as a people? What are we striving for? What are the things that we hold dear to us? What are the things that we tend to think is important to us? And how do we go about solving our problems, and how not so?